What's up, everyone? It's Jay Ray, the co-host of Q Points, and one really important way that you can support our show is by subscribing to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Q Points is pretty much everywhere. One of those places where you can subscribe, and we highly encourage it, is on Apple Podcasts. If you visit qpnt.net/Apple Podcasts. You could subscribe to the show and listen to all of the episodes. And please, please, please leave us 5 stars because you know you love Q Points, and leave us a review. We really want to hear from you, and it helps to spread the word about the show. It's that simple. Thanks so much for tuning into Q Points, and thank you so much for supporting us. Have a great one. Welcome to Q Points, the show where we celebrate and honor and just Black music in all of its forms. My name is Jay Ray, and with me I have the amazing...
I'm Sir Daniel, but listen, Jay Ray, listen. I've been thinking about this all day, and it's killing me. We got to do this. Will you just please indulge me with this real quick? Ever since I saw the music, saw the videos all over again and watched the movie, I just have to do this. You ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
Okay. J. Ray.
Yes, Daniel.
Are the mics loud enough?
Yes, Daniel.
Then shall we begin?
Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, that was my ode to Computer Blue on Purple Rain. I've been waiting to do that all week, you guys. I'm sorry. I know, call me a cornball or whatever, but I had to do it. I am Sir Daniel, and yes, this is Q Points. You know, we got to throw a little humor in there every now and then because this is a visual podcast where, like Jay Ray said, this is our space for meaningful dialogue around Black music and the global impact. Jay Ray, tell them where they can find us.
Oh my goodness, they can find us in so many places. So on Instagram, you can find us at Q Points, and on Facebook and Twitter, you can find us at Q Show. And if you're feeling froggy, you can email us. We are at Q Points the Show. So that's the letter Q, Points the Show at gmail.com, and all of that stuff is at the bottom of your screen. So if you look over there, down there. Again, thank you for indulging me in that. I appreciate that. And you know, the movie Purple Rain, of course, has been on my mind since we learned over the weekend about the passing of the legendary actor Clarence Williams III. Yes.
He played iconic roles such as Link from the Mod Squad, and of course, he played Prince's father in Purple Rain. And J. Ray, what's your first recollection of Purple Rain?
Oh man, so my first recollection of Purple Rain started when Doves Cry is the first thing that comes to mind. Because Purple Rain came out in 1984, I was seven years old, 7 or 8. I wasn't able to go to the theater to see Purple Rain, so I didn't see it until it came on videotape. Yeah, because it was like, I think it was rated R. It was rated R. It was like a whole thing. And so, yeah, Brenda and Johnny wasn't having that. So When Doves Cry was my gateway into kind of the Purple Rain, the Purple Rain film. But I will say, when I think of Clarence Williams III, I think it's also the first time that I remember seeing him on screen when I finally got to see the film, which was probably like a year later, and how intense he was. Like and this is throughout his career. So if you watch Clarence Williams III in anything, he's really serious about it. And so I think not only is that my first introduction to Purple Rain was When Doves Cry, I think my first introduction to Clarence Williams was Purple Rain.
Absolutely, very impactful throughout the whole movie. And so you mentioned Purple Rain being rated R. Well, listen, I was 9 at the time, and I saw Purple Rain in the theaters, but it was some subterfuge that went on in order for me to get to it. So my stepsister at the time, she was older. She I think she was maybe about 13, 14. So my mom took us to the movie, dropped us off at the movie theater. They decided it was at King's Plaza or somewhere in Brooklyn. And we were going under the notion that we were going to see Ghostbusters. Because Ghostbusters was, a little more wholesome, friendlier. And quite frankly, my mom is the 7-day Adventist, so we weren't even supposed to be going to the movies. Right. So I was just like, the fact that she allowed me and my stepsister at the time to go to the movies was like a huge deal. And, my stepsister being, from the hood and whatnot, she was like, all right, so we're going to go into Ghostbusters, but we're going to see Purple Rain. That was like the all-time. Oh my God. Because that's all I could think about. That's all we talked about was Purple Rain, the commercials and everything. And I just remember going in that theater, first of all, being super scared because we sneaked in.
Right.
To get a 2-4, and we sneaked in, and when we got in there, it was just really, I think it might have been the scene where Apollonia took her clothes off to hop in the lake.
Hop into the lake. She was going to be baptized in the Lake Minnetonka.
She was cleansing herself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. And my 9-year-old mind was blown. I was like, boobs on the viewing screen. I felt like the whole time I was doing something completely wrong, but I enjoyed every minute of it. We sat down and we watched that movie. And that was like one of those, those are one of those life-changing events that you go through. And mine was going to see Purple Rain when I was supposed to be seeing Ghostbusters at 9 years old.
Yes, super dope movie.
Absolutely. Critics hated it.
Of course they did. And I mean, I've watched it as an adult, and it is so misogynistic. And I'm just like, girl, is this what we're doing in this movie? We threw the woman in the dump. It was a whole thing. Like, I really had to remind myself that this was made at a time. It was the 80s. This was not uncommon in film. That film would never fly today, ever.
Absolutely not. There would be protests outside of the movie theaters. When Prince backhand slapped Apollonia and she flew across the room, I was like, whoa. I mean, could never fly in this day and age. But this past Monday, June 7th, Prince would have turned 63. 63.
Man.
Prince, 63-year-old Prince, I don't think would have had the strength to hit Apollonia, because she probably would have hit him back.
She would have definitely hit him back. And I don't think 63-year-old Prince would have done. He probably would. I wonder, and I've never read anything about this. I'm curious to know what his feelings were in later years about the film. I'm sure he had very specific thoughts about it. And I'm
definitely. Prince in his later years definitely was not the Prince that we grew up knowing. Like, we heard how conservative he got.
Yes.
There have just this past week, leading up to his birthday, there were a lot of conversations on social media about the kind of person he was probably not the nicest person. Like, Prince was kind of a dick.
Yes.
He was, among other things, he was he was homophobic is what they're saying.
Yes.
He's a dick to other people. Mm-hmm. And you were telling me something about Michelle and Cello.
Yeah. So, that's kind of classic. Michelle and Cello, I can't remember when this was written, but she had talked about, never meet your idols. And she talked about meeting Prince and how not great that was. And like, Prince wasn't a nice person. And and this one, and hearing that from her, who is an artist that, especially when you think about kind of those, her output is so Prince inspired in so many ways. For her to be
Definitely.
like, baby, no, that wasn't cool.
Yeah. And I agree completely with her. I tell the story to my friends. They're not, and I'm not even going to name them. They're not my heroes.
Yeah.
I do respect their music, but there was a certain boy band from Atlanta that when I was working at a certain radio station here in Atlanta, I was in charge of picking up this boy band from Atlanta for one of the radio station's big events. So I was sent to pick. It was like I was on this quest to pick up the Pokemons or something because they were in like 5 different corners of Atlanta. I had
And
to
you
go from
like,
this place to that.
can't y'all be in
Picking
one
them
spot?
So that was number 1. Number 2. So when we finally got there, I got one of the guys. I think he was their manager, road manager. He was like, "Okay," and I'm thinking they're all gonna come out from the studio. Nope, we got to go pick up such and such from this place. So then we went to pick up the twins. I mean, excuse me, I didn't say that. We went to pick up the guys from their house in somewhere in Decatur, and not only that, they were not the most pleasant, and they also had 2 recently removed members of the biggest girl band in the world in their company with them at the time. So they piled into the van also. So then we had to go get one of the really reckless members of the group from this little seedy hotel in Decatur.
Wow.
And he was 3 sheets to the wind and smelling like everything, if you know what I mean.
Oh my
and had a friend and a friend with him. And then we had to go pick him another dude. And when we finally, and all this time I'm getting calls from the program director.
Like, where are they? Like,
where are you? Where are you
time.
guys? They're supposed to be here. And I'm just like, we're en route. You know, I had to do what I had to do to get them. And the person from the label rep, she was like, "Don't let them give you any guff. You get them and you tell them you're getting it." I was like, ma'am, do you realize these are some grown Negroes and they are
already not paying you no place. Right.
So that was like my first instance of like, you know what? I don't think I want to meet anybody that I see in a video and I play the music and I think hold them in some regard.
Yes.
Because musicians are people.
Musicians are
people. When it all boils down to it, they are people and they have very human moments.
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes it just may not be the right time for you to meet them. But getting back to Prince, J. Ray, I got a question for you. If an alien, and we might very well be encountering some soon, if an alien comes to Earth and asked you to expose them to a Prince song, what song would you play for that alien?
I would play 17 Days by Prince. 17 Days is my favorite Prince song. For those of you who don't know, it was the B-side for When Doves Cry. And so Prince is famous for the B-sides. Let me explain I think I need to explain B-sides because we don't do that. Well, we do now that we back to vinyl. We do B-sides again.
Yeah.
But B-sides were, of course, the A-side was the single. And then you flip it to the B-side. Sometimes the B-side was an instrumental. Other times the B-side would be a song that may or may not appear on the record. Most times for Prince, that was not the case. These songs weren't on the record. They were just songs that were recorded at the time, mixed, done. 17 Days is one of those songs. It is one of his most famous B-sides, and it is a great tune. So that alien is going to get it's going to be a thing. It's good.
It's going to be a thing. It's funny you mentioned B-sides because the song that I would play for the alien is not even, you can't even find it anywhere. It's one of those 1983 demos that we can all hear, but you can't get anywhere. But my favorite is Extra Lovable.
Do I know Extra Lovable? I don't even think I know Extra Lovable.
Oh man. Okay. So we're going to have to drop a link for you to check it out. And it's just guitar and it's super funky. It's definitely one of my favorite Prince songs. And if you can even narrow it down to a favorite Prince song, because he's got so many,
So many songs.
and the man was just a once in a lifetime type of artist.
Yep.
And such a polarizing figure in the music industry.
Ooh, yeah. It's crazy to think about now. Well, you know what? Actually, I think Prince is in so many ways kind of the precursor for the musical experience that we have today, in that he was really committed to his expressing his artistic self at his whenever he chose to express it. And the record business at that time wasn't set up to do what Prince needed it to do. So I found this story. I had never heard this story before, but I found this story where this is when he was recording the first album. I'm like, oh, you just was this dude then. He was in the studio. He wasn't telling the label anything. So this is Warner Brothers, right? Because he was signed to Warner Brothers forever. They come to the studio, the label heads, because he wasn't telling them anything. So they like, well, we just gonna go on down to the Minneapolis and we gonna see what's going on. And they came in and they liked what they heard, but apparently one of the executives was like, oh my God, I love that. That would sound so good with bass. And Prince was like, there's no bass on my song. Get out of my studio. Literally 19-year-old Prince, without a record out yet, threw the executives from his label who were paying for the time out of the studio because he knew what he wanted. And so, yeah, when you talk about like a polar and literally what I love about what we experienced, Sir Daniel, was him really crusading for full ownership and control of his work, point blank, period. And I love that we got a chance to witness that.
Absolutely. I mean, how many artists can hold a major record label hostage by not delivering, refusing to release music, going on any kind of interviews with slave written on his face, changing his name to a symbol. I mean, listen, he did it all. The man, he was a little far left and, out of here at times. But, as far as music and artistry is concerned, he really was one of a kind. And, even to this day, in death, his estate controls what and when things are released.
Absolutely.
In death.
And so here's what is so hot. If you go to the YouTubes today and you play a Prince track from 1979, it is going to say NPG Records Inc.
Yep.
It doesn't say Warner Brothers. It don't say none of that because he got back all of that control. So literally, and now they get a chance to, so now they've licensed it over to like Legacy Records, which makes perfect sense, right? But I'm floored and excited that we live in a time when all of this classic material is wholly owned by the estate of the artist that created it. That's hot.
And it's very hot. And I think a lot of artists on the come up learn from that. And a lot of them are owning their masters. Yes. And I don't even know if masters, the actual physical master tapes, are a thing anymore. But they've learned that lesson from somebody like Prince. And, we're talking about when the estate chooses to release records. And so one of my fondest memories was working at HMV Record Store at Lenox Mall, December of 1998, because guess what people were buying in droves so that they could play New Year's Eve?
Oh, they were buying, of course, 1999. Oh, can we just take a minute to talk about the fact that 1999 is still hot right now, like in 2021, you could drop a song that the lyrics say we're going to party like it's 1999, and you're like, baby, yes, that is exactly what we're doing.
That's exactly what they were doing. We could not keep copies of that on the shelf, and it was just, and all people could talk about was, wow, Prince is a genius, because now he's going to get more money from these sales. And this was still when we had physical copies. When we were selling physical copies of 1999, and wow, what a moment. We can't talk about music retail and not talk about this iconic moment in another Prince movie.
Read it aloud so we can all hear how knowledgeable you are.
Record store.
You know what it is? You don't, do you?
Record store, it's nothing.
It is something. Come on, read it again. This time, say it louder.
Record store.
Louder.
Record store! I give up. What is it?
Wait. If you wanted to buy a Sam Cooke album, where would you go?
The record store.
So that was basically me at the top of the show.
At the record store.
At the record store.
At the record store.
Listen,
I love that.
It's classic. And if you want to buy a Sam Cooke album, where do you go?
Where are you gonna go?
You go to the record store. You go to the record store.
And and it's funny. So that was from Under the Cherry Moon. If you've been living under a rock, or you're not old enough to know what that's from, that was from the movie Under the Cherry Moon. Not as well received as Purple Rain.
No. Wasn't a great film. That one wasn't great.
It was not. No, but it has little nuggets, little gems in there. It's well memed.
Yes,
there's lots of memes that came out of it.
Yes,
but I got to tell you, that record store clip, it reminds me that one of my childhood aspirations was to work at a record store. Stores were magical to me.
And you did it. You actually lived out one of those dreams. That's hot.
I sure did. And I'm very disappointed for a generation that won't understand the anticipation of a Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or a midnight release where you had to stand online and wait, and before they could sell you the actual copy of whatever it is that you're buying. Yep. And album signings.
Yes.
I miss stuff like that.
I absolutely do. I remember. Now, here's what I don't miss. What I don't miss is, of course, I didn't work in a record store. I worked in Borders, which had a record section, and I worked in the Borders record section, which was a serious record section. But so one of the tasks, Sir Daniel, I know you know this, one of the tasks is on Monday night after closing, you would have to set up sometimes ridiculous displays, because back then, y'all, record labels would send you big old 6-foot things, and you had to set it up with whatever was going to be the hottest thing that week. And then you had listening stations, so you had to program listening stations and do the thing and da. But what was hot was, to your point, Sir Daniel, was the either at midnight, or if it was a midnight release, or the next day, people would rush in on their way to wherever they had to go because they needed their copy of whatever this hot record was.
They sure did. Boy, you just brought back a memory. Shout out to Mark Long, who was in charge of those window displays, because at HMV at Lenox Mall, we had to go all out because we had a window. And that window, he was in charge of dressing that window for whatever was the major release. I remember when Madonna's Music came out.
Oh, that was
he had like a whole barnyard motif. He found like bales of hay to put in the window, a pink cowboy hat with I mean, he went all out. So shout out to my HMV crew, Drez the Beatnik, well-known soul here in Atlanta. Yes. Drez the Beatnik, we used to work there. I mean, and HMV was one of those destination places for a lot of celebrities to just stop through, because Lenox Mall was, before it became, the war zone that it is now with metal detectors and whatnot. And Lenox Mall used to be that place to go to. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, records, music is accessible from your mobile device. You don't have to do any of that anymore.
You don't have to. You don't. What and one of the things I want to add is you don't have to, but there is no better feeling as a music lover than walking into a record store and there's other music lovers in there. Don't be in a section and people are like, "Oh my God, I got that record." So I have a really fun story. I don't remember what record store this was. It may have been HMV, but it could have been a Sam Goody or whatever. But I was in Philly. This was when I was in college. So this is like 97. Mm-hmm. And I had my Discman, because that's what you had. You either had a cassette Walkman, right, or you had a CD Walkman, right? So what I was listening to that day was New Yorican Soul. So this is Masters at Work, Louis Vega, Kenny Dope, and like their whole crew did this record called New Yorican Soul. I'm going to drop a link in the chat because it's crazy good. Well, this particular day, I went up to the counter and somehow I must have had it in my pocket and it fell, and the CD player fell out. And New Yorican Soul popped out because the case opened, New Yorican Soul popped out, and the salesperson was like, "Yo, that record is hot." Like, that's the only thing he said. He was like, "Yo, that record right there, that record is hot." Yeah. But that's what you got.
It was part of the experience, you know. When in order to work at that store at HMV, and Calvin, if you're watching this, you know this is true. Calvin used to test us. If you were going to work in his store, he would give you this little crazy quiz and ask you about your 3 records you would have on a deserted beach. Real crazy stuff. But it was super serious. It was like, you have to be knowledgeable if you're going to work here. And I would never trade that experience. I was broke all the time, but never trade that experience for anything.
What was your discount? What was your percentage of discount? Do you remember? It's like a 20%.
We got it at cost. Oh. So like if the CD was say $10, we got it at like 6 or 7.
That's
whatever cost was.
I would be broke too.
Listen, I stayed and don't let the record reps come up there with copies for you with with
promos,
with the record label promo copies. Oh my God, promo is like music to our ears. It's like free copies, and they'd be sitting in our mailbox, our cubby holes and whatnot. But the great thing though, J Ray, is that record stores, specifically independent record stores, are starting to have this renaissance. There isn't a weekend that I don't go to a record store.
Same here.
Yeah. This past Saturday, I went to the Atlanta record store at a hotel here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I've been there before. Mm-hmm. It has never been as packed as it was this past Saturday. Hot. It was like
we did that together, didn't we? The Atlanta Record Show. I believe we did that one. Yeah, huge, amazing event. Yep.
Big event, and now this coming Saturday is Record Store Day. And for the listeners out there, Record Store Day was started in 2007 by I think they call themselves Record Store Day, the actual agency or company. And they created this specific day. I think it's like it started out with a day in April and Black Friday in November, but they also have a few pop-up dates in the middle of the year also that are also known as Record Store Days. And the next one is June 12th. But these days are specifically set aside for indie shops, mom and pops,
Yes.
and they get special releases sent to them so that they can have them in stock. And it's just a great day. People that love music love to get out there and go to these record stores. And one such place, and I'm really excited about this because we have a guest.
Yes,
Our very first guest. Our first guest on the show. And this gentleman, this brother has been really instrumental to myself and a lot of other vinyl DJs here in the city. He's given us a place, a platform, and a home, if you will. And I want to introduce our very first guest. He is a singer, an actor. He is also the proprietor and sole owner of JB's Record Lounge. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Jonathan Blanchard. That's right. Jonathan Blanchard is here with us today. Brother, first of all, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well. I can't complain. Thank you all so much for allowing me on your platform. I really appreciate it. And furthermore, I really appreciate what you and the crew have brought to JB's Record Lounge and sustaining us to this point. Definitely.
Listen, when I tell you it is whenever JB calls, like the crew is there. We're gonna be there because you opened up the door to us and gave us a platform as vinyl lovers and people and DJs that not necessarily may not be the biggest names, but you've given us a place, a home for us to sometimes to hone our skills, to get better, and sometimes just to rock out and just have a really good time. So the appreciation goes both ways. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Jonathan, I'm going to call you JB from here on because, that's how I refer to you. But JB, you're an accomplished singer and actor. So what led you to open up JB's Lounge record store, JB's Record Lounge?
Well, a lot of it had to do with the fact that I am a singer. Oftentimes, what I have found in my career is that there aren't a lot of venues for Black indie artists to perform in. My counterparts, my white counterparts, who you will never hear of, are able to make a living successfully touring these small venues that you wouldn't normally be aware of. And what has happened is we have lost our circuit that filled that gap. We called it a chilling circuit, and it lost credibility over time. And what it really did was it kind of put middle of the road independent artists at a disadvantage, and also put Black business owners at a disadvantage that depended on those artists coming through to draw a crowd. So my initial goal was to provide a space then for indie artists, of course, catering to Black artists because that's where I saw a need. But anybody that wanted a place to perform. I also love records. I've been listening to records all my life, and I thought, what better way to kind of solidify my my legacy and create a retirement plan than to have a record store. So the record store really functions as a part of my portfolio, and something I can pass on to my son.
Absolutely, and that's him that we hear in the background, y'all. So that's the world we live in. You're gonna hear kids in the background. It's all good. And you mentioned, the Chitlin circuit, and I want the viewers and the listeners to understand the cultural significance of record stores themselves. Like I always say, albums, vinyl, to me, that is art. It's art. Not only does it encapsulate music and ideas of a time, but also the pictures, the cover art. What does vinyl, especially vinyl, because it's made such a resurgence, what kind of significance does that hold for you and JB's Record Lounge?
And vinyl lives. Our ears are analog. So then when you hear music played from vinyl, it's about as close as you're going to get to what it sounded like as the artist was recording it or expressing it. It begins to pick up the spirit of the room. It lives, it breathes, it can affect emotion. It can change thought patterns, its frequency. So to be a curator of that is humbling, and it is a honor. It's something that I take great care in doing, and I don't know if it stems from the respect that I have for the music or the respect that I have for the technical side of it and what it took to create a piece of vinyl to be put in the store. How many people had to have their hands on it, from the person that created the art on the cover to the person that printed the art on the cover to the person that shrink wrapped it and shipped it off. It's a lot of it's a lot of spirits that touch that piece of vinyl by the time you buy it off the shelf.
I never even I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. And at the top you mentioned, being in quarantine, and prior to quarantine, the record store was a place for us to gather, not only just to buy records, but to perform as DJs. But the quarantine didn't slow you down. That didn't stop you at all. My brother, you have been killing the pop-up shop game here in Atlanta and beyond, because you travel also. So, and whether it's the Atlanta indie market or thank God it's vinyl. Shout out to Johnny Normal. Are you in a hurry to go back to a brick and mortar?
You know what? When it initially hit the fan, I had about a 2-day panic. I panicked for about 48 hours and was disappointed and a little depressed and concerned about it because, it happened after our first 2 years. So it was already kind of a struggle, because any business struggles the first 2 years. But I kept my head and kept my cool, and I continued to do what I do, and that is we continue to put records on our website and upload records, and the pop-ups have just been a blessing, man. We hadn't missed a beat, man. As a matter of fact, business is better now, and part of it has to do with this being our 3rd year and name recognition, and just you guys and Wax Fundamentals just getting the word out, as well as some other indie DJs just getting the word out and really taking care of us in the sense of social media has been a big part of our success and our ability to maintain through this time period. As far as being in a rush, no, I'm not in a rush because there's no desperation. But what I am in a state of diligence and focus on trying to get to acquire a building, because one of the primary focus of JB's is not just selling records. It's meant to be a place for the community to come. It's meant to be a library of sorts. I come from 2 generations of librarians.
Wow.
My mother was a librarian. My grandmother was a librarian. So a lot of that is in me. And in order to do that, I have to have a brick and mortar. In order to provide a space for artists, I had to have a brick and mortar. In order to provide a space for spontaneous conversation, I had to have a brick and mortar. But I'm looking to buy now.
Okay.
I'm no longer interested in renting. We are established, and despite not having a business at hand, we are functioning on all cylinders right now. With the pop-ups, we stay quite busy. So
you have not missed a beat.
Nah, we have
not missed a beat. As a matter of fact, go ahead. No, go ahead.
The only thing we hadn't done is have events, and that's the only thing that I miss. But we try to be a part of other events and we try to support other people's events as well.
Yeah, that I was just about to say. I just saw you on Saturday at the Atlanta Record Show, and when I tell you that place was, I've gone there at least. I would say I've been there several times, right? And it has never been as packed as it was this past Saturday. And just like you said, it's there's a growing interest and rekindling of love for vinyl and for just that nostalgia. And I'm grateful for JB, for Mr. Blanchard and JB's Record Lounge. Matter of fact, Saturday we are being reunited. The Wax Fundamentals crew and JB's Record Lounge is going to be out at the name escapes me. Lamont's Firearms and Supply Store. If you're in the Atlanta area, come on out and see us. We'll be there from 1 to 6. But JB, this is your opportunity. Please let the people know how they can contact you and what things you have coming up.
You can contact us through Instagram at JB's Record. That's JBS Record on Instagram. Myself or Johnny is always answering those calls from the Instagram. You can go to our website, www.jbsrecordlounge.com. We got some great events coming up. Listen, this June, we have had, we're having 5 pop-ups. And the only weekend that we're missing is Father's Day weekend, because I'll be in Meridian, Mississippi performing a blues concert.
Okay. Told you this man is traveling and performing.
Yeah. But one thing about the traveling is when I go to other cities, I pick up records to sell at the shop.
Yes, sir.
I pick up records to sell at the pop-ups. So we've got a couple more coming up. So we've got Lamont's Firearms this weekend, and that's on Record Store Day out in Flowery Branch. And this Friday, we will be popping up at Best End Brewing Company in the West End. And I think that's 1053 White Street or 1063 White Street. You'll see it. It's on the left.
Right, exactly.
So that's going to be a late night thing. Yeah. And if you happen to miss us at those, on the 26th, we will also be doing the West End Indie Market, which is a great place to come. And there are usually about 50 or 60 vendors out there, all different, selling all kinds of stuff. It's a really great way to spend your Saturday and support some local vendors. So we are moving, man. We really are. We are raising money in our plight to purchase a building, and that's going very well. I can't say a whole lot about it, but trust me, it's going to be well worth the wait. Yeah,
I believe it, and I can't wait to be there. I know if you give me the call, I'm gonna be there on the 1s and 2s if you need me. So I'll definitely be there. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jonathan Blanchard, the sole proprietor of JB's Record Lounge. You heard him. This Saturday is Record Store Day. It's a very important day for established independent record stores. So please, if you're going out there to let your dollar circulate, make sure you holler at my man JB. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q Points.
My pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Peace.
That was dope. And I've been to JB's Record. I've been to when I lived in Atlanta. In fact, the picture that y'all saw behind that interview was taken inside JB's. That was of Peppermint Gaddy, I think, was DJing, and dope event. But it happened at JB's Record Lounge at that time.
And he dropped a lot of gems on us.
A ton of gems.
Just now in those few minutes. What was the one thing that you came away with that really stuck out to you? The library, the fact that he comes from a history of librarians, and when you think about record stores and him thinking about the record store as like a library, that to me is why record stores are so important. It is, I'm not dissing our digital advancements.
I love them. They allow us to do this show. They allow you, Sir Daniel, to be able to access music, to DJ and put in a set quickly, right? But there is nothing like... Listen, my fear is if Google blew up today, what happens? If there was no physical music, you would not... If we didn't have... This is a perfect example. If we didn't have physical albums, the Family's album has been out of print since like 1986. This is the first release, going back to Prince, the first release on Paisley Park that was it was still a Prince record, but it was a non-Prince record, right?
Yeah.
But if I didn't have the record, I wouldn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't have it. It's important.
I like to physically touch my music. From it, like I said in the interview, and what he talked about, it's the rapping,
yes,
the picture art, all of that is a part of history. There's people that do that for a living.
Yep.
So there's a whole industry that was kind of cut out for a minute, but now people are able to get back to work in printing up records and pressing records. There's a pressing plant here in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, and I really think that'll be a really cool field trip.
Absolutely.
For myself is to go to the pressing plant here in Georgia. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I had a problem like that with iTunes last year. I couldn't access any of my music. I couldn't purchase any new music. But listen, if I didn't have downloads or if I didn't have, physical copies, I'd have been SOL. But thank God for physical copies. And there you have it. I want to give a shout out. Speaking of physical copies, I want to give a shout out to a few of my favorite retailers here in Georgia. Like I said, Saturday, June 12th is Record Store Day. So don't forget to support your favorite retailer. But let me shout out Lady Marauder of Vinyl Paradise over at Tropical Express. There's Moods Music and Low 5 Points.
Oh, yes.
Criminal Records and Little 5 Points as well. Wax and Facts. I spend a lot of time in Little 5 Points, as you can tell. Wax and Facts is also in Little 5 Points. Shout out to DBS Sounds over on the South Side. Yeah. And of course, shout out to JB's Record Lounge at a pop-up near you.
Yeah. And here locally, actually this place is in Delaware. It's so funny that I can pull this out, but I have a gift card that I'm going to be using. I got it as a gift I think for the holidays. And this is to Squeezebox Records, which is in Wilmington, Delaware. So I am going to be headed down to Wilmington and go in there. And they actually did something really dope. So my Techniques turntable that's behind me there, the RCA cable went wonky. Like, the left side was working, but the right side wasn't working. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to cost me hundreds of dollars, right, to get this fixed. It didn't. I took it into Squeezebox. The guy was like, hey, our guy's going to come and pick it up. We'll call you in a few weeks. It cost me $50. I got it fixed. It's great. Turntable works again. So just these places matter. Record stores matter. I'm part of a record club. I think I may have mentioned this on like one of our first shows, but I'm part of a record club for a record store called Rainbow Records. I get new interesting music once a month. Stuff I don't know what's going to be in a box. It's just like, this is what we're giving you. And last month, I always get something interesting. So my favorite new record is by a group called Crumb. And the album is called Ice Melt. That record, I'm not cursing because we're wholesome.
You're wholesome.
Right. That record is amazing. So shout out to just record stores. And the ones that DJ Sir Daniel mentioned, I'm also a fan of. I spent a lot of time in Moods, a lot of time in Criminal, a lot of time in Wax and Facts. So shout out to all of those spots.
Definitely. And if you're here in the Atlanta area and you don't mind taking the hike up to Flowery Branch, me and my Wax Fundamentals family will be at Lamont's Firearms and Supplies at 4606 Elk Ridge Court, Suite E in Flowery Branch, Georgia. We'll be doing live vinyl sets. There'll be vendors, including JB's Record Lounge, because it is Record Store Day. There'll be food and a lot more. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to. Actually, when we wrap up, I'm probably going to be practicing once we wrap up here.
So make sure y'all hop on and watch DJ Sir Daniel. You know what I'm saying? If he goes live, it gets weird because you can't really go live because Facebook and IG will pull you down. But watch DJ Sir Daniel's socials. He's at DJ Sir Daniel. But before we get out of here, I do have one question for you, Sir Daniel, and that is what. Is there anything new, any new vinyl that you've like purchased or vinyl that you're revisiting right now that you're really, really like, oh, this is my stuff. I play this all the time now.
Oh, so Saturday, and I'm going to grab it real quick because I can see it right now. But Saturday, I was at the record store, at the record show, I found something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Ooh. And my friend Jimmy, he's a witness. He saw when it happened. Hold on real quick. Hold on.
What you got, Sir Daniel? Nice.
So what you're looking at is the Death Mix Volume 1 of Roxanne Shante. Now this is, of course, this is from Pop Art Records.
Yep.
Which is an indie label from your neck of the woods.
Yep, They were out of Philly at the time.
Pop Art was the home for a lot of legendary rap records early, and we should probably talk about Pop Art at one point because they were an independent label that gave us a lot of rap stars, a lot of their early singles, and this happens to be one of them. This was at the height of the Roxanne era, and Roxanne Shante was probably their biggest artist at the time. And they included her hits, which was Roxanne's Revenge, The Queen of Rocks, and also Bite This on one album. However, they also mixed in a few other artists on their Pop Art roster.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So at first I thought this was going to be all Shante, but it's not. There's some dope freestyle records that I hadn't heard, and it'd be really interesting to hear played, and some other rap records that I never heard of before. But when I saw this stopped me dead in my tracks because you can't find this a lot of places. This is really hard to come by. So yeah, that was my major purchase on Saturday. A record, like I said, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I was like, Jimmy was like, you got to get that.
Right. And I purchased it. As we head out as well, I know I pointed to this earlier, but that is Freddie Gibbs and Madlib Pinata. But this is a Record Store Day pressing. So it was specific. They gave it actually has the Record Store Day sticker on it. They kind of made it like a soundtracky sort of thing. They did new cover art. They actually created a specific pressing just for Record Store Day. So Record Store Day, record stores and Record Store Day is worth you celebrating. So if you are watching this, head out on Saturday, go to your local record store, independent one, wander on in there and get you something. They need that support.
Absolutely. And remember, kids, in life, you can always pick up the needle or you could let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
I'm J Ray, y'all.
And this has been Q Points, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.